Hello everybody, it is Saturday, June the 6th, 2026. Although dates are relatively unimportant, today I'm going to tell you a little story about how the universe conspires to put us together with animals, our pets. In my case, this goes back to 1999. The story starts in 1999. When my dog Sheba, who was 14 years old, I had rescued her from an animal shelter when she was 2.5, and she had been brought in because she had killed the neighbor's cat. I didn't get the particulars of how or why that happened, but it made me feel a little bit apprehensive since I had cats. Anyway, Sheba turned out to be a beautiful, beautiful animal and a boon to my life. I lived out in the Ortiz Mountains at the time, up on a mesa, and the Ortiz Mountains are about 25 miles southeast of Santa Fe, New Mexico. She lived with me a little bit over 12 years. She died of old age when she was 14.5. And I was feeling that loss, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to go through something like that again, another dog, loving them and then losing them. And, it hurts when we lose our fur babies, right? And so I was just really pretty much on the fence. Did I want to have another dog? I had 2 cats, and I was really undecided, but I thought, okay, the universe knows better what I really need than I do, so I will leave it up to the universe to decide for me. So Sheba had been gone about a month, I think, perhaps. It was November, December 99 when this little female, sable-colored, bit smaller than a German Shepherd, showed up on my front porch. And I had a glass door so I could see her out there, and I still had a bunch of Sheba's food left behind, so I started to feed this little dog, and she kept coming back. And so I started to call her Foxy Sable because she was sable colored, a really beautiful fox sable color. And she came back day after day after day, and I had, I don't know, a 25-pound bag of kibbles. I had some of Sheba's cans, and so I started giving her this food day after day, and after a while, that food ran out, and I was then buying food for her. And I was noticing as she kept coming back, she was getting wider in the middle with each passing day. And I realized we have a mama dog here, and she is expecting. So I got Sheba's collar. I had kept Sheba's collar. I had Sheba cremated, so kept the collar and put this collar around Foxy Sable with a note. And the note said, "I don't know whose dog this is. She's been coming to my house every day for weeks, and I have been feeding her. And if you guys don't want her, let me know, and I will adopt her." And so a day or so later, I got a call from a woman in town in Santa Fe, and she apparently lived a mile behind me, closer in towards the base of the mountain. And she said this dog had been left with her. She had been told the dog had been neutered, which of course was not true. And she was also told that the woman who left her would come back in a couple of weeks. Well, the woman didn't come back in a couple of weeks, never called, seemed to have just disappeared. And this gal up the road from me had 2 dogs of her own, and she said, "Well, I don't particularly need a 3rd dog, so you are welcome to adopt her." And Foxy Sable had her puppies in early February underneath this other woman's little casita up there. And so she couldn't leave her pups alone anymore. At that point, I ended up going up to where Foxy Sable was, with chickens and gallons of milk and all kinds of goodies, for not just for Foxy Sable, but I shared it with the other two dogs up there as well. And in the fullness of time, it was about maybe 4 weeks after she had given birth, I came up one time and all of the puppies were outside. And there were 9 of them. 8 of them were like in a little pile, all huddled together, like in a little pyramid. And then there was this one little knucklehead off by itself and shivering. But it was so fiercely independent that I immediately identified with that one lone doglet. I didn't know what gender it was, didn't particularly care. And I just, living up in the Ortiz Mountains off the grid was work, and I realized I did not have the comforts of people living in town, with flowing electricity, flowing water, all kinds of different heat available. I mean, no, I had to dig a well up there that was over 500 feet deep, and had to make sure that the water pump was working, had to put in solar for electricity, had to keep monitoring the batteries to make sure that, they weren't losing water, had to put in a septic system. I mean, all kinds of work went into living in the Ortiz Mountains up there, and it just was not as comfortable a place as living in town would have been for me. But I was fiercely independent, and I loved the lifestyle. And so I completely, 100% identified with this little lone doglet. And I said to the woman, I will adopt this charcoal-colored little knucklehead and his mother when she is done nursing. And the girl managed to find homes for all of the other puppies, except for one. She said one went missing, and that's because the Mesa was kind of a dangerous place for a puppy. There were coyotes up there. There were owls that could just pick up a puppy and fly off with it. There were rattlesnakes. Of course, they would not have been out in February yet. There were mountain lions. There were bears. I only saw one bear up there, actually, all of the years I lived up there, which was 24 years. And so when this dog was old enough, I brought it to my home. I had created a little fenced yard for it. But this dog, he was so fiercely independent, he scaled the fence that I had made for him and got out. And so I completely identified with him, and the desire to have freedom when you have an entire mountainside to roam. The dangers that were up there could have gotten him even in a fence-penned yard. So I thought, okay, it may shorten your life, but while you have that life, it's going to be a very full, beautiful life for you. And I let him loose, I let him go. And I called him Tashi. And Tashi is a Tibetan word meaning good, great fortune. And Tashi really was a very fortunate dog. He was able to negotiate all of the many hazards of living up there in the mountain. And he lived up there with me for 11 years before I bought a house in town. And then my greatest fear was that it would break his heart, having been completely wild and free for the first 11 years of his life. And I was going to turn him into a city slicker. He would have to learn to walk on a leash for the first time and be in a fenced yard. And then I also took him to the office with me a lot at that point. But I promised him I would bring him back up to the mountains every weekend and let him run off leash, which I did. And he lived another 4.5 years. He lived to be 15.5. And I miss him a lot. He was a wonderful, wonderful dog. He did manage to get into a tussle with a mountain lion while up in the Ortiz and lost a little piece of his lower jaw there. But when I think back on the circumstances that led to my adopting this one particular puppy, it's interesting how the universe kind of conspires to arrange events and situations for your greater good, right? And for the dog's greater good. And so it was a very happy relationship with my Tashi dog. I do miss him a lot. I have not had any dogs since then because I decided a couple of years after his death I really wanted to be a sailor. You can see the photo of the boat behind me up there that I ended up living on, and that would not have lent itself too well to having a dog because it involved going ashore to get my laundry and food and exercise, and it would have been difficult for a dog the size of Tashi to live on a 28-foot sailboat. Anyway, that's my story about how the universe conspired to get me and Tashi together, and I thought you might like that. There are so many wonderful stories on YouTube about how dogs manage to find people, cats too, and how people manage to find animals that are lost or abandoned. And so this is just one more story for you guys to think about. All right, wishing you a great coming week, and I hope to connect with you again a week from today. So, ciao.